Hello everyone, Jake here for FMSCOUT. Welcome to another tutorial/tips video where I'll be showing you how to build the perfect squad in FM23. Perfect being in air quotes because what a perfect squad is might mean something different to everyone. But generally, I'm going to give some tips here about squad building that you can use to make your ideal team and get your team firing at the highest levels. That's what we want to achieve from today's video. Before we start though, I'd like to ask you guys if you could to smash that like button for me. We'd massively appreciate it. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, as well as letting us know in the comments if you think I've missed anything here that's crucial about squad building. What do you do with your squads to get them to the perfect level? One final thing before we start as well, you might see we're using an Aberdeen save as an example. This is my personal save where we're 4 seasons in now, I think, but you can also watch this save on YouTube, on my channel, linked in the description down below. A lot of you guys have really enjoyed the series, so come check it out on my channel. I'd massively appreciate it. We also have some rebuilds on there and some YouTube shorts about Wonderkids you might not have heard of, so come check that out. But with that being said, let's get into it, shall we? How to build a perfect squad. The first thing I want to point out is that my squad here is by no means perfect. I think it's a very good squad, but there's always tweaks you can make to your squad to make it a better team. But the first thing we're going to cover, the simplest thing, is squad size. What is the perfect squad size? Well, obviously, that's going to depend on how many competitions you're in, how many games you're playing a season. Some leagues might play 20 matches, some might play 40. Obviously, you might need more rotation if you're playing more matches, but in general, I'll always say a 25 or so man squad is a good place to start. I don't know how many we've got here. If I highlight it, we've got 25. I'm a bit of a genius, you see. I've counted that without knowing, but yeah, 25 men is probably for me the perfect number. And the reason that is, I think, is you want obviously a first 11 of players that are going to play matches for you. You also want a backup in each position in theory, so a backup right back, backup left centre back, backup central defender, backup defensive midfielder. You get the idea. You want someone who can rotate and deputise for these players. And then your other 3 squad spots are usually young players who are breaking through, your third choice goalkeeper, sometimes just a Mr. Versatile kind of player that you need in your team that can play a variety of roles. But that's the pretty basics of how big you want your squad to be, right? About 25 men if possible. But if you can't have that many players, if you are in one of them semi-pro amateur teams, a big thing with squad building is player versatility. Those players that can play in multiple positions can often be lifesavers, particularly if you do have a more limited squad in terms of a player count. Let's take this player here, Mason Hancock. He's a great centre-back for us, but often deputises at left-back when needed, and he is a great handy player to have because if our left-back's out, he can hop in. If our centre-backs are out, he can hop in also. If we take a look at Ross McCrory, he's a similar player. He can play central midfield. He could play the defensive midfield positions, maybe not exactly in terms of the roles we want, but he can do a job there. He's also covered in centre-back for us before and right back. He can play in a variety of positions, and that's always particularly useful if you do have a more limited squad. So take note of that. Try and find some versatile players. Maybe even once you've got your first 22 as your extra players, you might just want some versatile heads to have around the club. That's always something to make sure you're doing with your squad. But now that we've covered those basics, let's get a bit more into the theoreticals behind team building. And the first thing we're going to talk about is experience. Now, obviously, when you're building a team, it can be quite exciting, like I've kind of done here really, to have all players under the age of 23, 22, 21, 18, 19-year-olds, these young up-and-coming players. But you need to try and balance that out with experienced players in the middle of their career. So your 27, 28-year-olds, as we have a few here in the 26 to 29 region. I would say they're the players that are kind of in the prime of their career. Not always that case, but on the majority of cases, yes, this is about when players will reach their prime. And then on top of that, what we don't have at this club, because we sold a few of them recently, is a few of the older statesmen, your 31, 32, 33-year-old experienced players. They can often be so critical for your team. Even if they're not playing too much, they can be great mentors for your players, which can be done in the mentoring section. Often those older players will have better personalities, and you can use them to mentor the younger players you have coming through your club. They can also be great in terms of leadership and settling squad arguments. How many times have you had it in a save where you've got a great captain, and when players come up to you and say, oh boss, I want to leave, I want a new contract, you can send your captain. And if it's a 22-year-old new captain that isn't really respected, often it doesn't work. But if you've got that guy who's been at the club for 10 years, imagine you were playing at Roma back in the day and you're a young 18-year-old and Totti comes along to you and says, shut your mouth, get on with your job. You probably listen to Totti, right? And that often happens in FM saves. You want to have those older players. And obviously, of course, sometimes they can still help on the pitch. And if you want a better way of visualizing this, I know I said it's a bit theoretical, but this is actually a legitimate thing in Football Manager. And if you go to your squad planner and then to your experience matrix, this might not be a page that you click on very often, but what it will show you is your balance in your team in terms of where the players are at in their career. So for us, you can see we have 3 players who are considered developing talents who are yet to really break onto the scene. Then you've got your emerging players. They're players who are starting to play well, not necessarily at the prime yet, but are starting to get into the groove of their career. You also have your peak players. So these are your players that are playing right in the peak. And you can see we're very light in our experienced players who can use their experience, as you can see, to help younger teammates. It's not all theoretical. These are things that you actually need in your team. And we are lacking our experienced players. You can also sort by position and have a look. Okay, goalkeeper, we've got 1 emerging player, 2 in development. Maybe we need someone in the peak of their career. If we go to, say, striker, you can see we've got 3 emerging talents, but not necessarily anyone in the peak of their career. So it's always worth checking that out and trying to find a good balance. Don't get me wrong, you can still have great results with a team like this. If you have a look, we're winning the majority of our matches, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on to try and make sure you do have that nice mix of balance within your club. The next thing that we're going to talk about is all about playing time. And this is something that even if you're the most experienced Football Manager player, you might not necessarily be doing this in the best way possible and actually harming your team. What I'm talking about here, if you go to your squad section and go by agreed playing time, you can see we've got a nice mix at Aberdeen here. We've got 3 star players, 3 important players, a bunch of regular starters, some squad players, and some breakthrough players. And you want to have this mix. I know it's really easy sometimes when you want to make a sign-in to just offer them star player. Sometimes it can really entice a player to join your club and it can feel like you're doing something great by just bringing them in really quickly, by offering star player. But before you know it, if you've got 5 or 6 star players, 5 or 6 important players, and some regular starters, someone's going to miss out on game time. No matter how much rotation you do, there's going to be someone annoyed at their position in the club. And if you have too many of these high playing time agreements, you're going to get issues where a player will come along and say, I'm not playing often enough. You can sometimes suggest, okay, I'll play you over the next few games. But if you break that promise, dynamics are going to absolutely shatter, and dynamics are so important in your saves. When you have great dynamics, it can really elevate your team from a 5 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10, a 9 out of 10. And I really do mean that. As much as tactics play a part in winning and player quality, I think dynamics are as of equal importance. They're so important to keep on top of. And if you have rubbish dynamics because you've offered these players high playing times and you can't agree to it, you are going to cause yourself issues. So try not to have too many players on really high playing time agreements. Try and have a nice mix like we have here. One thing you can do is every now and then, I don't have an example, but you might get an email come to your inbox. Usually they're from your coaches offering you advice, and they'll tell you something along the lines of, let's take Sergio Gomez's playing time down from a star player to an important player. And a lot of the time it will make sense. Maybe he used to be a star player, now he's only good enough to be an important player. Maybe you're dropping a regular starter to a squad player because you've signed some new people, and you can go ahead and click a button that will lower their agreed playing time. Now, sometimes you'll do this with success. There'll be no further emails, and that'll be great because then that player wants less playing time. There's less room for them to get angry about not playing. But sometimes it may backfire, and that player will come to you all upset saying, you demanded I be a star player. I'm no longer a star player, blah, blah, blah. I'm annoyed. Often in this conversation, though, you can just say to the player, look, okay, we'll go back to what you originally had, and it will sort your player out straight away. They'll be happy again, maybe less morale than they did have before you did that change, but it still won't be a massive difference. And I always think it's worth trying to do this to lower your players' agreed playing times when reasonable, because it will mean you'll avoid issues in the future. And like I say, if your player gets annoyed, you can just go to them and say, sorry, I'll take you back up to that squad playing time that you were on before. So that's always worth making sure you do, to make sure that you've got a nice mix of playing times throughout your squad. That will help you avoid dynamics issues and make sure your team is playing at the highest level. Whilst we are on this screen as well, I will cover star ratings and the fact that a lot of people will think the perfect squad means having 5-star players in every position. And I hate to break it to anyone who's trying to do that in their save. I know I used to back in the day when I first started to play FM, but It's not really possible. If you took Manchester City's team down to the Vanarama National League, maybe everyone would be 5 stars then. But in most cases, it's not possible because what's happening with these star ratings is they are judged by your coaches in comparison to other players at your club and in your league. That's why you'll often see your star ratings change when you sign new players, when a player isn't in form, because these ratings can fluctuate and they're actually rubbish judges, to be honest, of how good a player is. They can be nice indications, but they're not always fully accurate. And because these star ratings are determined based on other players at your club, you can't have all 5-star players unless everyone was at the exact same level. No matter what you do, you're going to have a player who's slightly worse than someone else. Leighton Clarkson is a 3-star player. He's good, but he's not as good as Sergio Gomez, and for that reason, they won't be on the same star rating plane. So don't always think a perfect squad means 5-star abilities all around. Okay, so we've covered the experience matrix, versatility, squad size, star ratings, and also agreed playing times. All of these can help to building the perfect squad, and getting these right can be crucial to winning games and maintaining your squad's dynamics and building the right team. But for me, one of the most important features of squad building is, of course, the squad planner. Now, I won't be covering transfers and finding Wonderkids and scouting in this video. We've got different tutorials for that. But when it comes to actually buying players and building your team, you want to make sure you have your squad planner in mind. And if you haven't used it before, you are missing out. It's a very, very handy tool. I know there'll be some players like me at the start of this year. I wasn't too interested in the squad planner because that's not how I played FM. I used to write down notes and whatnot on who was coming through and memorize it in my head. But the squad planner can be really useful in terms of planning for the future, particularly looking ahead for future seasons. So if you look, obviously, you can get a good idea at your squad of a mix of ability ratings based on those stars, which again, we shouldn't trust fully, but they are a decent indication sometimes of how good players are in comparison to others. And you can get an idea of how much depth you've got in each area, who's coming through. You can tick this filter here to allow it to feature under 18s and reserve players. And you'll see, oh, okay, we've got a left back who might be coming through soon who's useful. We have a midfielder who might be coming through soon who's useful. It's always worth checking this out and finding a nice balance between your squad, getting an idea of where your players fit in, where you might have excess players, where you should sell players, where you're light on players. The squad planner is brilliant for this, but one of the most useful features is to go up here and to click next season and the season after, because you can get an idea of whose contracts are expiring, who's around for the long term. Some people don't know this, but what you can also see is how good a player might be. For example, Mike Wilson, in a few years, they think might be a 3-star player. Currently, he is only a 2.5-star player, so they think in a few years he can develop, and it's really useful for visualizing your team going forward. For example, in 2 seasons, this guy called Trevor Fivey is supposedly going to be one of our better midfielders, and he's currently on loan, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe I should be taking more of a look at him. Maybe I should be extending his contract. Maybe I should be bringing him into the first team next season to get him ready for those opportunities. You can also get an idea of whose contracts are expiring at what time. And it's a very, very handy tool to get your head around not just squad building for this season, but building for the future. You can start to think about where you need to sign players going forward, where you'll be good for the next 10 years because of your youth academy. And you can also use all of these reports in here if you didn't already know about them. This is a good report to use, the best 11 report. It tells you your best player in each position, but also the best young player coming through in each area. Another great screen is this comparison screen. This is maybe for the more technical players of FM who like this kind of detail, but you can see compared to everyone else in your league where you stand on certain aspects. If we go to say the physical screen, you can see some information to say, okay, we have got some of the best stamina in the league, we've got the best pace in the league, but actually we're really low when it comes to natural fitness. So maybe that's something we need to look at. We're not very strong. Maybe you find out you didn't have great jumping reach, and that might be why you're conceding from corners all the time or something along those lines. You can find a lot of great information here. So there we go, guys. Some quick tips that you can use to build the perfect squad in FM23. Hopefully you have enjoyed. If you have, smash the like button and come check out my channel if you want to see more of this Aberdeen save. Have a great day and I'll see you next time. Thank you and goodbye.